We're going to continue our examination of social institutions here. We've already talked about the family. Now we're going to talk about religion and education. Again, those three are three of the five social institutions that sociologists believe exist in every single culture. The other two being government and econ. So here we're going to take a look right now at this one at religion. And please don't take offense to this, but in terms of religion, sociologists don't necessarily care about what a person or a group believes. Sociologists, on the other hand, are very interested in the social impact of religion on the individual and on the groups within society. They're interested in how widely and how strongly such beliefs are held. They also want to know what influenced individuals to adopt those beliefs. They examine the impact that religion has on family, on schools, on the state, the influence in culture, and other factors. But, as far as the particular beliefs, they're not as influenced or not as interested in that. For example, sociologists would be very interested in how religion affected people around the September 11th terrorist attacks. Did it change people's attitudes, people's beliefs? Did it change their behaviors? Another thing sociologists would be interested in, we'll talk about this in a minute, would be, how the subservient position of women in many religions influence gender roles in society at large. Does that have a big impact? So those are the types of things that we really talk about in terms of religion and sociology. Now, let's take a look at the functionalist and the conflict perspectives on religion. In terms of the functionalist view, remember everything in society is viewed as having a manifest function. Manifest would be the primary function, the number one purpose or number one function, and several latent functions. And latent functions would be extra or additional functions that that particular thing solves in society. So, in terms of religion, the manifest function of religion is to give people a sense of purpose and meaning for their life. That's what religion really tries to do. As far as latent functions, there's a number. I mean, literally, there are hundreds of latent functions of religion. It provides comfort and strength to people. It's a way to integrate the community. It's a way to promote, certain values and attitudes. It helps to provide for the needy. There's just an enormous number of latent functions that religions serve. Now, in terms of the conflict view, again, this is Marx. Let's kind of turn things around. Conflict perspective views religion in a different way. It says religion actually interferes with social change because it encourages the oppressed people to focus on otherworldly concerns rather than on their immediate poverty and their exploitation. For example, if, just to put it more simply, I guess, if a person is struggling here on earth, they can't make ends meet, they don't seem to be able to succeed in our culture, religion tells them to focus on the afterlife, okay? When you get to heaven or when you get to the afterlife, that's when things are going to improve. And so a lot of people, in the conflict perspective, they say a lot of people can put up with the oppression and with the exploitation that's occurring here on earth with the knowledge that after they die, things are going to get better. Now, religion also reinforces the interest of those people in power. For example, in many religions, women, again, tend to be second-class citizens, unable to participate in leadership roles within the church and things of that nature. So, again, from a Marxist point of view, it kind of puts people in their place. Okay? Now, let's take a look at some of the influence of religion, and please do not think you have to remember these percentages. Just kind of relax and listen for a second. But, this is just to kind of indicate the influence that religion has on people around the globe. Supposedly, around or approximately 85% of the world's population adheres to some type of religion. Christianity is the single largest faith, with about a third of the people on earth believing and belonging to the Christian faith. Second largest religion would be Islam, with about 20% of the population. About 90% of Americans say that they believe in a god or gods. 77% of Americans are Christian, and about half of all Christians are Protestant. About 84% of Americans report that they pray to God. About 66% of Americans are affiliated with a religious organization, and about 61% of Americans believe that religion can answer all or most of today's problems. So when you hear those percentages, that's a huge number of people in America and around the globe that have a belief in some form of higher authority. Now, that brings to question, especially with the percentages in America that you heard, is it possible for somebody in America to live in America and not be influenced by religion? And most people would probably say no. That just the simple fact that you live in America, you're going to be influenced by religion because of the multiple ways that religion plays into our lives, whether it just be holidays or just a variety of things. So, all right, one last thing that we're going to take a look at here, and that's cultural change within the United States and how some of that has taken place over the years. Here we are about 90 years after the Scopes monkey trial. And if we take a look at the Scopes monkey trial back in the 1920s, the mid-1920s, things were totally opposite. At the time, and I don't know how much you remember about U.S. history, but at the time of the Scopes monkey trial, essentially you were allowed and really kind of expected to teach religion in the public schools. Darwin, however, and the theory of evolution was outlawed. And John Scopes was a teacher down in Tennessee. And it's kind of interesting because the ACLU actually went around looking for a teacher who would be willing to challenge the law and kind of take on this case that we're going to talk about. And so in some states around the country, they actually had a state law saying that you could not teach the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin. Okay, they didn't want that in the schools. Well, the ACLU found John Scopes, and John Scopes said he'd be willing to teach it. Now, we always think back, history teachers, they'll tell you John Scopes was a biology teacher. Well, sort of. Technically, he was a PE teacher and a football coach. But something had happened to the biology teacher, and so he took on the biology class. And then he volunteered to the ACLU to challenge this law. So John Scopes openly taught the theory of evolution in his class, and he was charged with violating the law. Now, this was down in Tennessee again where it was illegal, but many other states around the country had the same law. The ACLU wanted this trial because they wanted to bring attention to the whole theory of evolution and the whole idea that in many people's view, the scientific approach, should be taught in the schools. So that's what they were hoping, that was their agenda to this trial. If you look at the trial itself, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is there was a law on the books saying you couldn't teach the theory of evolution. Did John Scopes teach the theory of evolution? Yes, he did. He admitted he did. So it's kind of like, a policeman stopping you for doing, over the speed limit, and you say, yes, I did. Well, what's the issue here? Why are we going to trial? And it was all because the ACLU had an agenda that they wanted to get the whole theory of evolution out there. It became literally a circus. People from all around the country came and tried to attend the trial. The building in which they held the trial, they couldn't even house all the people or hold all the people. So a lot of the people that were there were outside milling around the courthouse. It was almost like a carnival affair. It was broadcast on radio. That's how big of a deal it is. Now, was he convicted? Yes, he was. Did he face jail time or prison time? No, it wasn't that type of an offense. And in fact, he only got fined $100. Now, the prosecution was shocked when the judge only fined him $100. And in fact, that $100 he never ended up having to pay, because a year or two later, the Tennessee Supreme Court found that there were some problems with this trial, and they basically ruled parts of it unconstitutional, so therefore they threw out the verdict. But it just goes to show you, if you look essentially 90 years ago, Darwin was outside the school classroom. God was inside. Now today, if you look at the cultural change within the whole idea of the whole concept of religion now then Darwin's in the classroom and openly accepted by many people, and yet God and religion are outside, and people get in trouble for trying to pray in school and things of that nature. So it just goes to show you some of the changes that can take place, and it really doesn't take that long for many of those changes to have major impacts.